Carbohydrates. A carbohydrate is a biomolecule consisting of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms, usually with a hydrogen to oxygen atom ratio of 2 to 1. Like all other types of foods, when we eat carbs, some of the starch of them is broken down to sugars by our enzymes. The enzyme that does this is amylase, which comes from our salivary gland and is contained in our saliva. When we chew the food, the chemical process breaks the long glucose chains of starch into shorter chains, and occasionally something as small as maltose. Nothing happens to starch in the esophagus, as it is only used to transport food from the mouth to our stomach. The only process that happens in here is the production of mucus, which acts as a lubricant. No mechanical or chemical processes happen in this part. Due to the low pH level in the stomach, the salivary amylase will no longer work in digesting the carbs. The stomach acts as a storage for the carbs and nothing much else. After the stomach, they travel into the first section of the small intestine, the duodenum. The pancreas amylase gets released in there and breaks the starch down into oligosaccharides and maltose. The rest of the digestion of carbs is done by the enzymes produced from the enterocytes, the small cells lining the small intestine. The enzymes made from it include lactose, maltose, and sucrose. The carbs will get absorbed as they travel through the jejunum and ileum. By the end of this process, we are left with 3 monogosaccharides: glucose, fructose, and galactose. These can now be absorbed into the bloodstream by the enterocytes to be transported to the liver. Any carbs that weren't digested by the small intestine pass into the colon. Bacteria living inside the colon, called the gut microbiota, feed off of the remaining carbs. This can sometimes cause bloating. The main carb that doesn't get digested through the small intestine is normally fiber, because we don't have the enzymes to break them down. Proteins. Proteins are one of the more important substances in our body. Many of our hormones and enzymes are primarily made out of protein. Proteins don't get absorbed in your mouth, unlike carbs. Digestion starts when the proteins reach our stomach. Hydrochloric acid and proteases break down the proteins into smaller amino acid chains. From there, the smaller chains of amino acids move into the duodenum. As this is going on, the pancreas releases enzymes such as trypsin and trimotrypsin, and a bicarbonate buffer, which raises the pH of digested food. This allows the enzymes to work on breaking down the amino acids chains into smaller amino acids. As protein is broken down in the small intestine, microvilli are absorbed by the amino acids and other nutrients. When they are absorbed, the amino acids are released into our bloodstream. From there, the protein is transported to other parts of the body to help build muscle or repair tissue. Nucleic acids. Nucleic acids are made from huge macromolecular compounds that are polymers of nucleotides. Other enzymes don't have much effect on them, so they will go through the mouth, esophagus, and stomach without being digested. Digestion starts in the small intestine for them. Our pancreas releases the enzyme deoxyribonuclease to break down the DNA, and ribonuclease, which breaks down the RNA. These enzymes mix with them in the duodenum, and they continue to break them down as they pass into the jejunum and ileum. They are then absorbed by the intestinal mucosa, which is the inner lining of the intestinal tract. All chyme comes in contact with this, and from there, they are transported to the liver through the bloodstream. Lipids. Lipids' main function is energy storage, and they include fats, oils, and waxes. We have to go through a unique process when ingesting lipids, as they are insoluble, so we cannot digest them like other molecules. Digestion of the lipids start in the stomach with the gastric and lingual lipase. These break down the lipids into their fatty acids and glycerol molecules. When the fats enter the duodenum, bile gets released from the gallbladder, which aids in breaking down the larger lipid molecules into smaller ones. This process is called emulsification. Pancreatic juices are then released, which contain lipase. The molecules then pass through the plasma membrane and into the epithelial cells, which line the intestine. The plasma membrane separates the interior of the cells from the outside environment. The bile salts surround the long chains of fatty acids and monoglycerides, which form small spheres called micelles. Micelles move into the small intestine's absorptive cells, and in the process leaving the micelles behind with a chyme. The fatty acid chains and monoglycerides recombine in the absorptive cells to form triglycerides, which in turn form globules that are coated with these proteins. These spheres are called chylomicrons. They contain hydrophilic phosphate of phospholipids. When combined, they can travel together without exposing the lipids to the water in the bloodstream. This is how they are absorbed.